him because he and his family are now rich. I am happy because the system in America that we have provides avenues for both kids who have it a little easier and kids who don't. They're a little gangly. You don't come from a lot of money. But in the end, in America, my mom used to say this, my late mother, who grew up in England, they've got a royal family. You're born into it or you're not. That's not America. People often look at Josh Allen and say, well, I mean, he wasn't very good his first year. How come you're so hard on Tua and Daniel Jones? Let me tell you why. Because Josh Allen didn't go to a perfect high school football power. He went to Firebaugh High School. Look it up. You won't be able to find it. His dad, a regular guy, sent tapes and tapes and tapes of his son to the local college, Fresno State. They weren't interested. He didn't have great high school coaching. Then he went to Wyoming. This is not a knock on their football coach, but he has a losing record, and that's with Josh Allen. As much as I like Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, he had Bobby Petrino, a great coach. As much as Baker Mayfield has succeeded, let's give Lincoln Riley some help, a great coach. When Josh Allen got Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator at Buffalo, it was the first elite offensive mind he'd ever have. I have nothing against Daniel Jones. I have nothing against Tua. But I will expect more from you because you did the kind of prep school, elite college route. One of you had David Cutcliffe at Duke, one of the brilliant college offensive minds. And Tua had Nick Saban and Sark. I've said before, I am far less patient on quarterbacks than I've ever been because we have an ecosystem now for quarterbacks where they have 10,000 snaps by the time they're 11. But Josh Allen didn't. He didn't come from big money. He didn't go to a big high school. He didn't go to a big college. He didn't have an NFL guy in college. Josh Allen is the story that also works in America. And congratulations to the Buffalo Bills. Because in America, we are a home for capitalists. And there's a lot of money for the prep school route. And there's also a lot of money if you trust your instincts and you get a kid from Wyoming that is really big and gangly and throws a lot of interceptions and he's not refined and he's not polished and you just trust him and you surround him with great support. That is not just an NFL story. It's a story all across America. And Jordan Palmer, the quarterback coach who has worked with him and spotted him early, talked about Josh Allen, his situation, and why it is a perfect fit.
He's worked really hard. He's developed. He's ahead of a lot of people's schedule if there was one. But he's also in a spot where Brian Daboll, Brandon Beane brings in, makes these moves to get him, and then they build around him. Josh Allen deserves a lot of credit for his success, but what Terry and Kim Pagula have done to not just go get him, but the pieces that are around him, he really is in one of the most desirable situations that you can be in.
By the way, do not resent those who have it easier than you do. Don't. That path works too. But the two highest paid quarterbacks in the National Football League are Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Uncoachable traits and incredibly coachable attitudes, and a football life full of bumps. The struggle's real. You can get there that way too. All right, let's shift gears to the Jets. Probably won't talk a lot about them this year, so let's give them a little love. Or not. They drafted Zach Wilson. Zach, a little too much of Johnny Manziel. Small, cocky, and comes from wealth. Hope he does well. There's a little Johnny Manziel here. But I heard a quote from his coach this weekend, and we've just got to put a stop to quotes like this, and I'll explain it after. So Zach Wilson really struggled this weekend in a simulated game. He was bad, really bad. I mean, egregiously bad, and his coach was there to defend him.
For most rookies, especially on the offensive side, but for everyone, it's going to get worse before it gets better. It is what it is. There's just a lot of things that happen. I mean, there's a reason why being a rookie is hard in this league. There was a Hall of Famer yesterday that was inducted in that had a 71 quarterback rating his rookie year. It's not easy to play quarterback in this league as a rookie, especially quarterback. But it is going to get worse before it gets better. But he's at that point now where he's going to be able to stack up days, and we got all the utmost confidence in him and his ability to figure out the mistakes and correct them and get to a better place.
Okay, new rule. I add another new rule every month. Let's stop comparing quarterbacks who played 23 years ago to today. Okay, you know I love Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning and the Manning family are American football royalty. The Hall of Fame this weekend was just all sorts of awesome. So this is nothing against Peyton Manning. But Peyton Manning played in a different era. Quarterbacks today have four things going for them. Number one, every rule is built for offense. Number two, most of these college quarterbacks enter the NFL, with much better coaching. Number three is the offensive coaching in the NFL today is better. And number four is, in the 90s, receivers would not go over the middle. There used to be a term called alligator arms because you could take their heads off. Every team had maybe one receiver. The Cowboys had Michael Irvin, who was willing to go over the middle and get hit. Now, all receivers love to go over the middle because you can't hit them. So let's stop with comparing stuff. Peyton Manning had a much tougher life. And Peyton Manning, you say, well, his dad's Archie Manning. Back then, like Marvin Harrison, I'll play one side of the field. Guys didn't want to go over the middle of the field. The offensive coaching now is so sophisticated. We've got to stop that. So let's just stop that. Zach Wilson's reality is much closer to Lamar Jackson or a Baker Mayfield than it is to Peyton Manning. And I'll give you an example of this. Just how quarterbacking has changed. I'm going to give you a rock star quarterback from every decade. And these are all great. And this is not a criticism of any quarterback. But this is how the world has changed for quarterbacks. So I don't want to hear about Zach Wilson and Peyton Manning. By and large, unless you had a Josh Allen trajectory, which is high school, college, it took you a while. Just think about this. Joe Namath, Broadway Joe, his completion percentage in the NFL was 50%, and he's a Hall of Famer. John Elway was a rock star in the 80s, early 90s. He completed 57%. Troy Aikman was a rock star in the 90s. He completed 61%. Peyton Manning's a rock star in the 2000s. He completed 65%. Drew Brees' last 5 years in the league, he completed 72%. Okay. So, again, this is not a criticism of anybody. But the reality is, when you start looking back and go, well, Peyton Manning, don't. The game now is different. We are watching a different football game. By the way, it's a better football game. It is a safer football game. It's more offensive-minded. I'm all for it. The NFL today, to me, is much more enjoyable. I can remember years ago, 20 years ago, when Peyton Manning broke into the league, the promotional videos weren't great catches. It was hits. They were selling like, hey, buy this tape for the biggest hits in the NFL. You look at that stuff now, you're like, you get thrown out of games because somebody's going to get hurt here. The NFL's never been better. They finally figured out we didn't watch the games for defense. We watched them for quarterbacks and offense. We watched them for running backs and wide receivers. Everybody always says, oh, I love defense. No, you love your great defense. But if I told you that the opening week of the NFL, the average score was 29-27 or 14-12, which would you take? You tell me, what teams do you watch? I watch a lot of the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. I watch Tom Brady games. I watch a lot of Peyton Manning games. I didn't spend a lot of time last year, watching the Jags offense. So I'm rooting for Zach Wilson. But let's not go back 25 years with quarterbacks and go, look at what Peyton Manning faced. You saw the eras. You saw the rock stars. If you don't complete now, 63-64.